In order to understand what follows now, we will start on the line that begins with the word atah. That 6 lines from the bottom on page Tezayin. And the specific question we're discussing right now is how do we kind of rectify the apparent contradiction between saying that atzilus is a lakus mamush, is only an emanation, not a new creation, and at the same time we say, it is as distant from Ein Sof, it is more distant from Ein Sof than even biyah from atzilus. It's a complete novelty. For this, we started to introduce a principle, the principle of a memutzah, of an intermediary. And the principle of an intermediary is that the intermediary is able to correlate and connect two very distant entities. Distant, of course, we don't mean in terms of space, but distant means in terms of their quality, that the lower cannot possibly really understand and relate to the higher, nor can the higher in any way relate to the lower. They're in totally different realms. And the memutzah is that which is able to bridge this gap and bring the higher in proximity to the lower, and bring the lower and enable the lower to relate to the higher. We are speaking in the Maimer here the way the inyonim are l'mayla. In atzilus, Ein Sof, and atzilus, and then biyah. Okay, these are the inyonim that are focused on the overall reality of the creation itself, the essence of godliness and the creation itself. But as we all know, there is a mashal. There's a means to identify the principles on a much lower level, on a level that are within, so to speak, within our own experience. As you pointed out, that the whole phenomenon of a mashal itself is really a godly gift, where everything that was created throughout the Seder Ishtalshelus has a similar structure, a similar relationship, a similar process, as it is at the highest level. And the highest level is reflected on the lowest level. And the challenge to us is that when we understand it on the lowest level in the mashal, we must make every attempt to understand the nuance, the implication, the ruchnius, the sense. We must not, and may not, attribute to the highest level the similar structure as it is in the bottom, in the lower. The lower level, the mashal, is only a means to project and understand, to relate to the way it is in the mind. So the principle that we are going to get to in this whole discussion of the contradiction, the two different aspects in atzilus itself, the relativity to atzilus itself. The mashal that we have for this is something which we already mentioned in this context. We're learning this already several days. A halachic mashal. I'd like we should understand this. The mashal is that if you carry out on Shabbos is not allowed to carry from Rishut HaYochid to Rishut HaRabbi. In order to carry something out, in order to be liable for this violation, that this is considered that you have violated this halacha, the carrying out the transition, transferring of an object to the other, to one domain to another domain, has to be an object of value. And if it lacks this principle of value, then you're not liable. If one carries a crumb of bread, a crumb of bread has no functional value, and therefore that carrying is not going to in the category of carrying. Everything has a particular shear, it's called, a special measure, defined measure in halacha, that carrying this constitutes a violation of this thing. So we have a classic principle that one carries a food stuff of lesser than the minimum measure that constitutes the value of food stuff, which means carrying this food will not constitute a violation of the Allah. But he carries this food in a plate.
Carrying that crumb on a plate.
That crumb on a plate.
Yeah. Okay.
A plate surely is a violation of carrying. But if the plate is carrying a crumb, and he's carrying the plate in order to transport the crumb, that's very difficult for us. Let's make something very realistic. He has a spoonful of soup, or 2 spoonfuls of soup. You can't carry soup without a plate. And he wants to continue, he wants to have this soup. He is carrying the soup by carrying the plate. The soup does not, the amount of soup that there is, does not constitute a violation. The plate, of course, is a violation. But since that he is carrying the plate as a servant to the soup, and the soup does not have that minimum shear, therefore the plate is bottled to the soup. Because his intent in carrying the plate is not for its own sake, it is in order to transport the soup.
So he's not liable.
He's not liable.
All right, and the nimshal here. Yeah.
He's not liable for carrying the plate. Okay, this mashal will be mentioned several times. I want to delve into it a little bit deeper so we can understand the significance of this mashal in terms of exposing to us the principle of atzilus and chokhmah. This plate, the plate as such, yes, indeed, it is bottled to the soup. All it does is able to hold the soup. Does the plate fully appreciate what soup is?
Of course not.
The plate does not have that kind of a sensitivity to appreciate what soup is. And yet, it is able to hold it and be a vessel for it. Not only that, it becomes so profoundly united with the soup that all there is there is the soup, not the plate. The plate is a non-entity in this whole process. Because of the great significance of the soup, particularly from the human perspective, the person who's carrying it intends it for the soup, the plate becomes a non-entity, not even of a secondary value. It's as if he didn't carry the plate, he carried only the soup. This is a phenomenal level of what we call bitul. The plate is so thoroughly and totally dedicated to that which it carries in the soup. That's what a plate is for. And thus, it completely loses its own yeshus. So this plate can have something of tremendous significance, such as soup, food for the human being. At the same time, to be a plain old plate. And you can put it in a washing machine and put it in such a way in the closet. The soup has to be guarded that it shouldn't spoil. But in the freezer, in the refrigerator, in the freezer, the plate will never get spoiled because the plate doesn't have that quality to spoil. And yet this plate, when you represents exclusively the soup. It's a receptacle for it. This is the principle of bitul.
And memutzah.
1 second. I want to carry this to the point so that we'll really relate to what we're saying here. Again, the plate does not appreciate what soup is. And yet it is so totally self-effacing in the face and as a respect for the soup. Coming now to a more expressive mashal, we said that the wise man, the chacham, the pikach, the open-minded, the one who relates to reality, he says, I pick the king. And you turn around, you pick the king. Why? What do you know about the king? What are you going to get from the king? Are you going to sit in company with the king and spend time with him? And enjoy his company, enjoy his wisdom? Not at all. So what do you get out of what does it mean you choose the king? So the pikach explains, he says, the fact that I'm not going to be able to experience it is insignificant to me. I know that I'm in proximity of the real thing. Something, yes, that I cannot possibly understand. as completely not in my realm. But I'm able I have the privilege of being with him. That's what I pick. This is more important to me than anything that I can experience and actually understand. Because I have a sense of what reality is, what the truth is, what the godly truth is. Everything else matters nothing to me. Therefore, this pikach can actually contain in him and relate to the Melech himself, and then translate that relationship in an action that will fulfill the king's command on a totally different, in a totally different world, in a totally different arena. And thusly, he is transmitting the king and the king's wish and the king's reality to a world that is in a totally different realm. To the world of action. To the world where without action there is nothing there.
What is his last piece? He the wise man translates the king's will into action.
Into the world of action. When the king issues a command and the wise man jumps on the opportunity to fulfill the king's command, there is not a direct correlation, an appreciation of the significance of that command between the wise man and the command. What is the value of the command? Why does he jump at the opportunity to fulfill this command? Not because he appreciates the command, but the command came from the king. What more can I wish for than the opportunity to follow through on the command from the king?
And how this is bringing us something different from the plate and the food.
No, it is in a similar thing.
Okay.
Except it's something that's closer to our mindset. Plate is a little bit of a projection. But halachically, that's what it is. Halacha exposes the truth in such succinct, in such a clear terms, it's even difficult to understand it.
So the wise man here, he has both that bittul and he's like a memutzah here.
And he's a human being.
And he remains a yesh, he remains who he is, yeah.
This wise man can come to his comrades who chose all kinds of other things, and he says, I come from the king's palace. The king wishes you do this. And if you do this, you will be fulfilling the king's wishes. And they say, what do we get out of that? We want to have a business of our own. And the wise man has to stand there and deal with them and explain to them how valuable that is and how this is superior to anything else that they would accomplish.
Is there an explanation? All you can really come with is the statement that he's following through, and this is and elucidating this is the king's command. Is there anything in the realm of explanation that he gives?
the realm of explanation is like this. The Weizmann is coming to all the other people. He would not come lahavdil to a dog to explain this. He would come to a human being. Why does he come to the human being? Because he perceives, like we said, the men in the gutter. He perceives that they too have that sense, except it's hidden deep down in their mind and their soul. But nonetheless, they have it. They too know what what truth is, the value of truth, the value of the godly truth. So he says to them, listen, I can't explain it to you. Put on tefillin once, and you will see it's a very special experience. It'll pull you out from your quagmire, and it puts you in a different realm.
It'll put you in a different realm, even if it's beyond your experience.
Beyond your understanding, yeah. But the neshama can relate to it.
Uh-huh.
It's interesting. I was standing, I traveled a lot recently, and this was, I don't remember in what stop, it was in Australia still, or was it already in California? I don't remember. I think it was in Australia still. I don't remember. I was saying, I couldn't daven before the time zone and all that. So I stood in the airport, waiting for our flight, and I davened there in the waiting room. Shachris. Put my talis and tefillin and davened, stood in my place and davened. Unbewares, there were a couple of ladies behind me, and they were observing me. They were, like you say, what is called, they're peering at me, almost to the point that if you would notice, they would be embarrassed. What?
With great interest.
With focus. And then I finished, one film, put on second film, folded everything up. So the lady said, I'm sorry that what is the expression? I was peering at you. It's so fantastic. It's so fantastic to watch this.
That's how she said it. It's fantastic to watch. It's fantastic to see this.
Yeah. She used a different word, but so fantastic. So yes, are you Jewish? No.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's continue. Okay, as I said, we're starting from the line that begins atah mechassid, the 6 lines from the bottom. So we're quoting here, he's saying that atzilus is the intermediary, it's a memutzah that correlates the upper Ayin Sof with world. This Inyan that it correlates Ayin Sof with world is seeing that atzilus is a world. If it correlates Ayin Sof, that means that within Ayin Sof there is that capacity to relate to world. So he quotes from Ayin Kodesh that yes, indeed, in Ayin Sof there is a capacity to function in a very finite, in a gvul, in a very finite and definitive manner. Just as he is able to function or to affect in a bli gvul manner, he is capable of function and effect in a very definitive manner. What is the gvul? The hagvul. Okay, let's this we said already yesterday, but the middle of that line. The hagvul hanimtzu mimenu tchilo hein hasfiris. The gvul, the first level, the first instance where gvul is comes forth from him, from Ayin Seif, hein hasfiris. This is the spheres. As we discussed last night, that the spheres is chokhmah and chesed and so forth. Each one of these koiches in a human being, taking it and is a definitive, is an individual koich. Although that if you would just think of it in a gross manner, we say it's me doing this, me doing that. Me. Each one is a definitive koich. And in a very general sense, we said seichel is in the brain, midas is in the heart. The definitive koiches. Gvul. V'hakavona. Okay, this is all a quote from DailyChassidus. That gvul anim menutzah tchila hein asfiris. That the first instance of gvul coming forth mimenu from him is the spheres. V'hakavona. And the inference there that the spheres, this is the gvul. Hey hakavona al hakelim da atzilus. Actually, he is referring to the kelim of atzilus. Shein bebchinas gvul. The kelim of atzilus which are bebchinas gvul, which are within the realm of gvul, because they have a definitive, present and definitive function. A few more words and then v'hainu, which means sheheim b'geder u'mahuz b'chinas chokhmah b'chesed. This is the phenomenal thing, that in atzilus, even though it is in extremely close proximity to Ayin Seif, which is Ayin Seif, but from this Ayin Seif also come forth these individual spheres, which are gvul. The gvul element in the spheres is referring to the kelim. The kelim atzilus, not the oil, as we will see later. And what does it mean it's the kelim? Sheheim begeder umhuz b'chinas chokhmah b'chesed. They are within that defined realm of being called chokhmah b'chesed. Okay, let me interrupt for a moment and give us a little bit of a, for those who are still following. Begeder umhuz chokhmah b'chesed. Chokhmah and chesed, everything that come, all the spheres, and essentially they all are drawn, they all are giluyim, are expressions and revelations of Ayin Seif. It is Ayin Seif that contains and that enables all of these qualities. But as they come into kelim, they are defined by the quality rather than by the Ayin Seif that enables it. Again, a mashal for this. The mashal for this is, as we pointed out many times, you have water. Water, what is it? More than half of the water in the world is water.
Oh yeah, right.
The water and ground. Water is a necessity in overall existence of water. For everything, not for any particular function. Just this is water. World is land and water. And if we start identifying functions of water, we can never end. So we say water is water. Every drop of water has the full capacity of water of the overall meaning of water. Then we have water in a cup. So I say water in a cup is also water. But this is where you have identified. Water in a cup is not water in a lake. It's not water in the ocean. It is identifying a very limited and particular function of water, which is drinking by a human being. In that state, it is still the same water that was in the lake. But now you have identified a very definitive and a finite, identifiable presence of water. You cannot jump in the lake and drink. But from a cup, this is not only drinkable, this is the proper way to do it. This is what water is made for, to be served in a cup for a human being to drink. In other words, water in a cup acquire a new definition of water. It's not water in a undefinable. It has a water associated directly with its function, defined by its function. This is the principle when you go back to Chochmah and Chesed. Chochmah and Chesed are essentially inyonim of coming from the nefesh. But when these Chochmah and Chesed are imbued in their keli, and they're actually identified as such, then they become associated with the keli, rather than with the overall nefesh quality. That this is the principle of Gvul that is identified within the Bli Gvul.
It's like new properties emerge.
Right. It's not like definitive properties.
So it now becomes distinct while remaining the same material.
That's right. All right, to be continued in Mitzvah. Have a great day, and we shall meet tonight in Mitzvah. Normal time. Call 2.
Yeah.